The other 15% is all about pleasure. You deliver pleasure two ways, by appealing places and by appealing discretionary purchase merchandise. And so I use as a proxy for both extremes, right? Best merchandise in North America is probably available on Rodeo Drive in Los Angeles, Beverly Hills. What makes Rodeo Drive so special? Well, it's not paved in gold. It's the same width, same street material as Beverly Drive, the next one over. What makes it the best street in the world is the best merchants in the world are on it. Okay, so you can get there by having the best merchants in a market. So, what mall has the best merchants in Detroit? Somerset. Right? If you really want to go to get the best merchandise, you're going to go to Somerset, right? And if you really want to get the best merchandise, you're going to fly to New York City or Los Angeles. And if you want a great place, what's the ultimate place? Disney World. And what's every single square foot of Disney World that's not a ride? Retail. So we pay for pleasure. We derive pleasure by pleasureful places and pleasureful purchases. Completely different than what you do at a Walmart, or a grocery store, or a convenience store. And these are the 5 major ways in which discretionary purchases are delivered. A few traditional malls like Somerset will survive, but less than 150 will survive out of what was once 3,000. Some are mixed-use centers, outlet centers, high streets, and themed attractions like Disney World. So with all that, the United States has 24.5 feet of retail per person. Any idea how much Europe has?
3.
And most of the rest of the world. We have 24 feet. What does everybody else have?
Yeah.
Half?
12.
4.5. So we're going to run way over. So if any of you have to go, feel free to go, but we got a little further to go here. So they have a fraction of what we have. And the difference is, we have all that. You don't find that around most of the rest of the world. And there's many reasons for it. It's not just culture. It's availability of land, zoning, tax structures. I could spend a whole afternoon just telling you about why our system encourages development and the rest of the world doesn't. So we build things like this that look like that at night. The rest of the world still has high streets. All right. We're at the end. I'm going to go through this real fast for you guys. It's not as important to you, but if you're in the shopping center business, it's growing now at a fraction of what it did for the last 60 years. A lot of people are leaving the shopping center business part of shopping centers because there's not as many shopping centers being built. But that's not because there's problems with retail. That's because we've built a mature industry. So I'm going to show you from malls to strip centers and now to where we are now, and this is how it looks graphically. That's mall construction in millions of dollars of construction, peaked in the mid-1980s. That's strip center construction, power centers, which peaked in the early 2000s. This is other, which is actually too high. I'm going to be revising this chart downward. That's what that's what it looks like when they're all together, which, what does it show? The top line shows we're at less than half of the rate of construction, and that's also too high. We're actually at less than a third the rate of construction we were for the last 50, 60 years. When we add it all together, that's what we got, and that again is too high on the right. I'm going to be adjusting that. So it's no longer a construction business. It's an efficiency business. But that doesn't mean retail sales aren't going up. That just means that the infrastructure is built. So what's happening is, we're now at the point where the rest of the malls are coming out of service. They were made obsolete 30 years ago. They're just finally coming out of service. They're very complex legal and property vehicles. And we don't need to build a lot of strip centers anymore, except where we have population growth. So we built one industry, we replaced it with another, and now we don't have to replace it again. It has nothing to do with the internet. Almost nothing. Okay, I'm going to run real quickly through the Internet. This could be a whole day class. These are articles from 2012 and 2016, basically saying that internet shopping is replacing stores, right? We've all read these, right? That's the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal from 2012 and 2016. I'm going to cut right to the end here and show you that as of the beginning of the pandemic, 10.9% of U.S. retail sales, you need,
I want to show you something real quick. Just so you know.
yeah, 10.9% of sales were online. Oh, okay, thanks. That was what was happening on the right. The red was the rate of growth of internet sales, and the blue was total internet sales. Okay, 10.9%. I want to go back one slide. Amazon's share of it was about 1%. Spiked up to about 1.75% during the pandemic, and internet sales grew from 10.9 to about 15%. You would have thought it was 90%, right? Barely grew. We'd grow 40%, but not a big percentage. And there's reasons for that. So this is a more recent chart from eMarketer, now predicting what sales will be after the pandemic effect. And guess what? If you go back and look at the other one, and we don't really have time, but the red line is ending exactly where it was before the pandemic. Internet sales in 2023, they are projecting will be exactly where they projected they would be in 2019. The up and the down and the evening will have completely washed out everything that you've experienced in the last 24 months by 2023. And that's from the most reliable independent judge of that in the world. And it's all about shipping costs. Amazon doesn't make any money, and they don't make any money because of shipping costs. Okay, we know they bought Whole Foods, right? At the time they bought Whole Foods, there's what they had in stores, but here's where they were in percent. See that little blue on the right, bottom right? That's the percentage of the grocery business that the internet had in total at the time of the merger. And just to be sure, Whole Foods had 1.4% of the U.S. grocery market. Amazon, 1.1%. Together, 2.5%. A rounding error. And the stock market did that the day the merger was announced. It drove up the price of Whole Foods by 30% and took every other company that sold groceries and knocked it down by 10 to 15%. 2.5% merger caused that kind of hysteria. And all the retailers that were doing self-checkout, what did they start to put in? Curbside delivery before the pandemic. The biggest money loser in retail. There's not a major grocer in America that makes money on curbside delivery. They all lose money. And they all are doing it because Wall Street has told them they have to compete with Amazon. That's not very good at food. And a very small market share. And if you saw 2 weeks ago, Amazon has decided to take away free delivery for Prime members from Whole Foods. They're going to charge you now $10. That is 2 weeks ago, just announced, hot off the press. So they're in books, they're in Amazon 4-star, they're now grocery stores. They're supposedly coming in with a 30,000 and 100,000 foot store, and nobody knows why. And if you've seen recently, you're now starting to get advertisements for prescriptions. What Amazon is really after is the interface with the most affluent household in the United States. What they want is recurring income streams. Just like Apple has, just like Netflix has, just like your phone company has. Bills that get paid automatically that are very profitable. And the valuation of Amazon has nothing to do with retail. All their profits right now come from web services and advertising. And long term, all their future profit is all about controlling the interface with households. That's what they're after. And ultimately, if they're able to sell every service you get in a house, right? They can sell you your gas, they can sell you your cars, They can sell you your house utilities, your insurance. That could be an awfully profitable business. So everything you're seeing in the losses in retail sales have everything to do with them setting up a big play for control of a big portion of other spending that has nothing to do with retail. Yes, sir?
That could be scary though, too, can't it?
Yes, there's major antitrust, there's major pricing, there's all kinds of issues associated with it, as there are with social media, but that's beyond the scope of what we're talking about here tonight. And this is the guy I'll read if you really are interested in this, Scott Galloway. He wrote the book on it. He's a professor at NYU, and he talks about recurring income streams. And what he argues is that companies that have recurring income streams are just inherently much more valuable than companies that don't. And he has one chart that I took out for tonight that shows Amazon being worth more than every retail company, every major retail company in America combined. And of course that's a silly comparison because, you know, if you're being valued on the ability to have recurring income streams forever, compared to a vital service like Walmart, they're apples and oranges. There's only a few businesses in the world that can be as profitable as Apple and Facebook and so forth. That's what he argues. It's all about share of households. There's the chart I was telling you. Amazon worth more than TJ Maxx, Home Depot, and Walmart combined. Okay, I'm going to skip through this, but this is really important to know. And we're going to run out of time here because there's a classic here. But the U.S. retail economy is now being bifurcated between the haves and the have-nots. So here's the important things to know. That's the share of income and wealth controlled by the top 1% in red. Blue is that controlled by everybody else. And here's what I think is the most important. 70% of Americans have less than $5,000 in savings today. If you have less than $5,000 in savings, you don't have credit cards. If you don't have credit cards, you're not buying on Amazon. You're buying everything in cash, and that is borne out by the following. The single fastest growing retail industry in America is dollar stores. There are 34,000 today. It will grow over the next 9 years to 52,000. 80% of what dollar store sells are commodities, consumables, and they're the most inefficient pricing model of all, geared towards the poorest people. And this is a distribution of their stores. California, we have 33,000 stores. California only has 200 Dollar General stores. California, I was talking to the owner of a boutique grocery store in San Diego yesterday and told him this number, and he about hung up the phone. He just couldn't believe it. It means that there's going to be so many dollar stores coming to California in the next 10 years, it's going to blow your mind. Dollar Tree, one chain, is going to open 450 stores between now and the end of the year, and 1,500 stores next year. You do the math, that's about 4 stores a day. So we are now living in a world where we have rich and we have everybody else. And pretty much every store that's opening does over 50% of its sales in cash. Every one of these does 50% or more in cash. And every one of them has a very small or non-existent internet presence because they lose money on the internet. Okay, this we're going to go through real quick. These are the major influences on retail going forward. We've already talked about it. We'll continue to buy in strip centers, but we're not going to build them as fast as we used to. Cheap fashion. Cheap fashion had as much to do with destroying department store sales as anything, because once they got into fashion, right, all they had was fashion. Now cheap fashion comes along. You put H&M and Zara in a mall, and what does it do to Nordstrom? Cuts their volume by 1/3 overnight. We now think there's a 50% chance Nordstrom will go bankrupt before it's all over. I just want to show you one last thing. Social media, but more importantly, in the next 25 years, there will be more technological change than in the human history. In your lifetime, there will be more change in the next 25 years than in all of human history before. It will have a dramatic effect on retail. So look for things like 5G phones, Population's gonna explode at the same time. Blockchain technology, 3D printing, artificial intelligence, bullet trains that connect cities, New York and Washington in 45 minutes. And then I'm gonna just show you one last thing and we'll be done. This is about land development, you don't care. So remember these? Well, they were fake news. So there's the real stories. Wall Street Journal from 1963, all I did was change the word catalog to internet. Same fear-mongering happened when catalogs came on the scene. And all internet is an electronic catalog. And this one's from 1994, and I changed mail order to internet. Makes you feel a little silly, doesn't it? Okay, sorry we ran out of time, but hopefully you'll leave here with your head spinning.